Oh, there we go.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, and I think we're going to get a quorum too.
Recording in progress.
All right, I will get that taken care of after. So we don't go through this again. But we have did you all access the link through the meeting invite?
Yes.
All right, I will get that taken care of after.
Okay. Can I go ahead and start?
No, we don't have a quorum yet. Either Lisa or Mike, whoever's first, we need to. Oh, did I send the wrong?
The link I was trying to click in the email looked like it was for the quarterly meeting. So when I was trying to sign in, it said another meeting was in progress. So then I just found an old email with the board of directors one.
Thank you. That was my bad. I'll send an email out to everybody. Thanks, Kristen. There's Mike. Thanks, Lark.
I did what Lark did.
Yep, I'll send an email just in case when Lisa was trying to join, she doesn't get messed up too. Sorry about that, everybody. Rochelle, you have a quorum.
Okay. All right. So it is
Sorry
12.
about that. I don't know what.
That was my fault, Mike.
Okay, so it is 12:11 and we can start. First item is approval of minutes from January. Does anyone have any changes they would like to, or additions they would like to propose to those minutes? Okay, then we will approve those as submitted. Next is the chairman's report. For January, we spent $1,190.03. That was for coordinator salary and benefits. And year to date, we have spent $11,740.72. We are still working on trying to get a county board representative. Lark, can we talk? I know at one time you had some possible suggestions. Can we talk further about that?
Yeah, I reached out to Chris Caius, who I thought would be a really good choice. He's from the Dundee area. And I can reach out to him again. He just was relatively new to the county board and was hesitant to take on anything additional at the moment. There's also Strathman, who might be a good choice. And I know her, I can reach out to her as well.
Okay, because I keep sending letters and requests and we're not getting anybody. So
Are you sending them to Corrine?
Yes. Yes. So maybe you and I can talk further.
Yeah, I can send her a text message and tell her we really need somebody and see And then I thought maybe if we reached out to somebody directly on the board who was interested, that might speed up the process.
Okay, so you and I can talk.
Sure.
All right, anybody have, that's all the chairman's report, unless anyone has any questions about that. Okay, so then moving on to old business. First is youth. So Julia got a request from Illinois Math and Science Academy, their student coalition for racial justice. And they were interested in the council, possibly in a volunteer collaboration opportunities. So Julia and I are setting up to meet with them. They meet Monday evenings, and we're gonna have a meeting with them to just kind of see what they are looking for, what potentially we could offer for them, or what they could offer for us. So we will have more information on that, but just throwing that out there to everyone. Also, potentially, I don't know necessarily from this particular group, but looking in regards to our youth involvement on the board as well. And then the FSA junior board, they were the ones who had a youth who volunteered to participate in the Policing the Teen Brain. And they were also potentially interested in working with the board as well. So, you know, just kind of throwing out, possibly having a conversation as to whether we would be interested in pursuing this individual from the FSA junior board. Or Julia had a suggestion, which I thought sounded really interesting, and throw out to the board as well. We've had two groups now reach out to us, and then we had Mila come and speak to us, perhaps maybe doing a roundtable with kids. We could host a roundtable with kids from these different groups to talk about the issues that they are working on in their coalitions for racial justice. And also for those who attended our meetings with the council, one of the things they brought up was our youth involvement, and we talked about that is something that we continue to work on. They indicated that, I can't remember exactly who it was that indicated it, but that in her experience that paying them is the best way to do it. Julia does indicate that we have the ability to use gift cards as incentives. So that's something that we can consider too, if we decide to do something, some sort of roundtable or anything like that, that we do have gift cards that we can use as incentive to hopefully entice youth to come and participate.
Can we feed them in addition to the gift cards?
So I believe Julia can weigh in on this, but I think food is an issue. We cannot.
That's what I thought.
It's an issue paying it out of our grant. If there is another office that would want to sponsor lunch of some sort or some sort of meal, then we've done that in the past, but we can't pay for food.
So any comments, suggestions on that? What do you think?
I think it sounds like a great idea.
So maybe, you know, what may be useful is for Julia and I to have our meeting with the kids from Illinois Math and Science Academy and kind of see where they are, so that if we know that we have another group to make a part of this before we proceed any further as a group. Okay. All right. So Julia is working out with them. They meet Monday evenings, so she's working out to set up a time for us to go and join their meeting. So hopefully maybe we'll have some additional information on this next month. Okay. Then moving on to parent involvement. So this, Julia also, the FSA connected with Julia, and they have a parent who has previous involvement in the system. We're not really sure if that is the parent, he or she had involvement in the juvenile system, or if it's a parent who has a child that was involved in the juvenile system. And so Julia was just interested in finding out, if we have interest in including a parent, and if we did, what next steps we felt as a board would be appropriate to reach out to that potential parent. And to add to that, the parenting group that just did the restorative practices, there is potential as part of that group too, if we wanted to have a parent representative as part of our group as well.
So I was just going to contribute that if I'm on board with having parents and youth for sure, but if we're going to have a parent, that I would like for a small interview panel to talk to them first and screen them to make sure they're on board with restorative practices, because that's what we want.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. So Julia, maybe the next step would be seeing if we have more than just this one person interested, and then we can take steps to get a group to talk to them and make sure that they are the right fit for us. That sound okay?
Sounds good.
All right, then we are moving on to our one voting item today, which is the law enforcement training edition. So Julia sent out information on this just to remind everybody as to, I know we have, some new people that are coming to the board who were not part of this discussion when we had it at the past, and to remind all of the rest of us as to potential issues that we had at the time with the Jeopardy program and with the Justice Jeopardy and how it was being presented. Was everybody able to see those documents and take a look at them? Okay, so then I would just ask for a motion so that we can discuss our vote today.
I'll make that motion.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion on this topic based upon what we had all reviewed? So I will say from Julia, and she can jump in on this as well. So what is being offered is the only option or alternative that we have been offered to reconcile the miscommunication in the training dates. So if we want to pursue this, this is the only option that has been afforded to us. Just want to make sure everyone has that information.
So if this training goes out to, and I think one of my liaison officers is already trained, are we then able to then, let's say all the St. Charles liaison officers are trained in the juvenile justice Jeopardy, can we then host an event or have an event at school with kids, and whoever wants to come can come because we're officially, we have the blessing to teach this? Is that safe to say?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
right.
My understanding, yes.
And so just because I don't think that you were with us when we had discussed this before, but part of the issues that had come up before were in the questions that were a part of this, and there were concerns, and anybody can correct me if I'm mistaken on this, but there were concerns with the questions and how then it would be relationships between police officers and youth based upon the conversations and content of the questions. There is, in this situation now, it is going to be police officers presenting this. And so that may have, a different spin, a different take than the concerns that we had in the past.
Did
I
we
think there was
discuss?
also, I'm sorry, Mike, just to piggyback off Rochelle's concern, I think there was also a little bit of concern about the information itself that was being provided it as almost like recommendations to the youth, which could adversely impact relationships with officers, but also just who's the appropriate party to provide that information to the kids.
Did we talk too about whether they were trying to make this proprietary, where we couldn't just turn it into our own thing and have after the officers receive the training, start completely doing it on our own, or was that not an issue? Where they're trying to make this like a product almost.
Was that related to this or I don't remember if the proprietary stuff came up with Juvenile Justice Online that we were talking about too at one point. With this, they give us the game and we can't edit the game. The game is what the game is, and then you have to use it as it's created. So in that sense, we wouldn't be able to change it.
Okay. So I guess I was getting to his point about once the officers are trained, you have the game, you do have to agree, you can't add other questions or change the questions. You have to use it the way they've packaged it.
Correct.
Any further discussion on it? Okay, so then we'll put it to a vote. Does the Board of Directors approve moving forward and collaborating for strategies for youth to provide training for some officers to become game leaders for the Juvenile Justice Jeopardy game? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, so it looks like that we have it will pass, and we will approve for that collaboration and for officers to be trained in the Juvenile Justice Jeopardy game. All right, so moving on to restorative practices. Julia, were you present for the training?
No, not directly. Okay. I was around, but I wasn't directly present.
So there was a 2-day restorative practice training with parents, and that was completed on February 5th. And Julia is coordinating to follow up a meeting to debrief and explore next steps. We do want the board to know that there was a slight issue. So in this group, there were individuals who were non-English speaking. And so the health department, as part of their children's mental health grant, had the materials translated. We did check in with the providers of the materials, and they indicated that we would not be able to use those translated materials because they would be considered as modifying the curriculum. And so the training would not then qualify as an official training. And that is what is needed to attend a training of trainers. The parents were provided with this information, and they decided to forego using the translated materials. And what we have done is we have shared the translated materials with the restorative practices people for them to look at. And our hope is that they will approve them and we will be able to use them going forward. Did I get all that right? If that's everything, Julia?
Yeah, I would say the only thing I would clarify is that the participants were under the impression that the training was all going to be in English. We were just trying to help with their comprehension because sometimes, there was a lot of words used in the materials that they may not have understood as English second learners, right? I don't know if that's the right term, but, and so we were trying to assist with that accessibility. And unfortunately right now the IRP does not offer any of their materials in any translated language other than English. So they are working on that. So we're just a little bit ahead of the game. So hopefully we'll help accelerate this process.
And what they had told Julia is that, as Julia said, that they are working on making translations, but they expected that to still be a wait to get those. So we suggested to them that we would share what we had, if that would potentially speed up the process a little bit. Any questions on that? Okay. So the issues of restorative practice have also come up in some of the recent discussions with the Work Group for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity, Committee for the Children's Mental Health, grant, and this is related to school structure, or I'm sorry, school culture and exclusionary disciplinary practices. And Julia was asked to present an overview of restorative practices to the work group and discuss what the JJC has been doing to share this framework so that they can possibly share that framework throughout the community. So that is just something Julia is also taking part in. We wanted to let everyone know about that. Did you want to share anything else on that, Julia?
No, it's on Tuesday, so that.
So our family court guides, so we had those, they were translated. There were some issues with the translation. So Julia is still working on getting those translated so that they will be proper and correct. Once that we get that done, we will be sending out a vote to approve them and to approve having them printed for the courtrooms. These are the family court guides that were worked on to have in the abuse and neglect courtroom and the delinquency courtroom to kind of lay out the process from beginning to end and to explain common terms that are used in each of those courtrooms. And the final thing for part of old business, our expungements packet that is still being reviewed, hoping that we will have that up soon back on our website for anyone that is looking for it. And our next point is racial and ethnic disparities, and Julia is going to talk on this one.
So I think the board knows the our RED team for the council is meeting again in March. So there's not really a whole lot to update there since we haven't met since the beginning of January. I did want to just mention to the board some updates from the statewide committee, the Illinois Racial Justice and Equity Committee. So they have currently two work groups, one that is looking at the data, specifically the data that was submitted last year when they reached out to all of the jurisdictions in Illinois. They received responses from, I think it's around like 60 of the jurisdictions. And so they've been working with the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority to put together one-pagers that will then be distributed back to those jurisdictions that submitted data. And as part of that, so we're part of kind of returning that data, offering like a letter of support and letting them know, hey, the Illinois Racial Justice and Equity Committee is here for support or technical assistance. That's, an entity that can help, but also then looking at that data and determining if there's any strategies that we might want to take a look at on a statewide level or really trying to reach out to certain jurisdictions where we see some high levels of disparities, that sort of thing. So that's one work group. The other work group is more of a qualitative work group that's looking at gathering best practices related to reducing racial and ethnic disparities, both at local levels, at the statewide level, and even at a national level. So if anyone knows of any that we want to highlight, that we want to pass along to this work group, if you want to let me know or send me an email with that, then I can put that. They're tracking it just on a Google Doc right now, but really just looking at some of the best practices or some of those strategies that have been used to impact racial and ethnic disparities. And then the other piece of information related to the Illinois Racial Justice and Equity Committee is that this month, at the end of the month, they're going to be highlighting the JJCs as an entity for jurisdictions to really utilize to begin exploring and addressing data. So I just think that's going to help with promoting the functionality of JJCs within a jurisdiction. So we do have that opportunity before us. So that kind of covers like the updates, but I wanted to check in with everybody looking at our budget and where we're at in the year. We do have money that's set aside for a poverty training. I don't know if there's thoughts about if there's a need for cultural awareness or either poverty or diversity, equity, inclusion type trainings there are some diversity, equity, inclusion trainings coming up that are going to be hosted by the Illinois Collaboration on Youth, which I will share what those are. I'm going to send an email with all of those out by the end of this week. But I didn't know if there was something that as a council we wanted to look into, to put out, or if that's a need that you all are seeing.
For sure, that's a need. All of those trainings. So like in past, in my department, I have an adequate budget to send people to those trainings. I just need to know where and when they are so I can send people. But are you wondering, because in the past, this council has sponsored kind of tuition or scholarships to allow police officers to attend or any interested party. Is that what you're looking for at this time?
So I think that could be one option. What I was thinking, so the ICOI trainings are free, so that wouldn't cost anybody any money. I was either proposing that we actually bring in a training as a council, sponsor the training itself, for people to then attend that at no cost to them. Or to your point, Lisa, I could look for trainings if we want to send specific people to those trainings.
Either way. So court services does have a good training line item this year. So if the JJC wanted to sponsor training, we'd be in a good position, I think, to help or to co-sponsor something if you needed more money to make that happen. Or we could do scholarships to community members. Either way, it depends on what the rest of this board wants.
Should we, Julia, like maybe start with, if we bring someone in, start with seeing what's available to bring someone in?
Yeah, I guess my question is, what is it? I mean, Lisa, you said all of the above. So poverty, racial and ethnic, like any of those topics is going to be beneficial. We got a broad.
Yeah, the cultural competency, all of that,
Okay.
because that's also the mission of the Illinois Supreme Court at this time. It's one of their goals so they're doing a lot of trainings at the judicial level on those topics. Not so many, it would be good to have us all on the same page. So for sure, if the judges and the court system is getting that kind of training, it would be nice if all of us could have it.
Okay. Perfect.
If I could just add, if we are going to do any training that involves the police officers, we did just get a whole bunch of mandates with the new House bill. So if we were going to have that training, if we could make it so the training and standards boards can approve that, so those could be hours that are used for that, the mandate, that would be really helpful if possible.
Do you have a list of, or is the training board circulating kind of like an outline of what they're looking for?
Yeah, and we were sent a really good breakdown, so I can send that over to Julia if you want it. It's really easy to read because that House bill was pretty lengthy. So we just have a breakdown of what is needed over the next, every 3 years or whatever it may be. So I'll send that to you when we're done.
And then we could do like a Venn diagram of the interest of this board, with what that act is requiring you guys to get, and see where there's commonality and try to move in that direction.
And I think that that's a good, if we can get something that the officers would get credit for as well, there's probably more buy-in then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, Julia, so you'll bring us back more information?
I'll do my best.
Okay. All right, great. Did you want to talk about the domestic battery work group too?
Yeah, sure. So the adolescent domestic battery work group, we have not met this year I think it was since November was our last meeting, maybe. And the reason for that is because we were doing some information gathering from some jurisdictions that were implementing the Step Up program. So I did have those meetings and I submitted a summary to the adolescent domestic battery work group for review. So now we're in the process of coordinating another meeting to get the group back together to continue the conversations now that we have this additional information.
Any questions on that? Okay, so we'll move on to our SEAC speaker requests. So Julia sent out information that those dates have been confirmed. And we did, if you have not voted yet, did you get all responses yet, Julia?
I think I was short one, unless,
So if you have not done the email vote, please do that for the flyers. We're just asking to get approval by the board because our logo is on that for those speaking dates. And just a little bit of clarification too, I know that Judge Parga sent out a question about this. I know that all of us had kind of agreed that we thought that in person was better for these than virtual. Unfortunately, with so many schedules to accommodate, there just was really logistically no way that we could do the first one in person. And so that's why the first one is going to be virtual. However, the idea is that the youth that attend will be attending the first part and the second part. And with the second part being in person, if they have any questions that they weren't able to ask virtually, they will be able to present that at the second part. And there are people that are attending both part one and part two. So we will have people available at the second one that could answer questions in regards to the first one. And Julia is volunteering to coordinate a meeting or sort of a check-in after part one to see if there's anything that we do need to address as part of part two that we missed in part one with it being virtual. So I just wanted to explain, Julia heard all of our wishes as to, you know, trying to make it in person. I think we all agree that kids probably listen better in person, but it just was logistically, it just wasn't going to work that way. Any questions about that? Okay, so last month or the month before, we talked about the JJC restructure ideas, and Julia has submitted a draft of that agreement. And I apologize, I did not get to look at it this week. So I will be looking at that, and then we will hopefully be able to present that to everyone. We're also going to have Civil take a look at it since it is an agreement that we are asking people to sign off on. So we are going to ask the state's attorney's Civil division to take a look at it and make sure that we are not missing anything. And then we will be ready to present it to all of you. Okay. So then many of you were a part of the JJC site visit. Just wanted to put it on for old business, just to see if anyone had any feedback from that, anything that they wanted to discuss as part of that. Julia did a lot of talking for those who were not on there, and she did a fabulous job at representing us.
they did ask us, but just for the board's awareness, they did ask us on our last coordinator call, sort of about our feedback to it, because they are kind of refining the process a little bit. So I have already provided like my opinion. I just didn't know if others had their opinions that they wanted to be passed along as well. So I wanted to.
Well, I'd make one comment. It's probably the same thing I keep harping on, but they seem very quick when they were talking about data to just want data for the kids that are clearly in the juvenile justice system, which I think we've all talked about over the years, is if that's where we start, it's already too late. So if we're not making an effort to get data prior to them being referred to court services or prior to actually being in the system, I don't know what the use of that. I mean, obviously all data is useful, but it seemed like it was, as a starting point, they were accepting data, when they're officially in the justice system, which I don't think gives a really accurate reflection of what's happening in the communities. But I don't know, did anybody else think that that's all the data they wanted was for sure data when they're in the justice system? They didn't want to worry about diversions and ordinance violations and things like that. And the definition of arrest, I thought that was, the one person said, oh, an arrest is, when you put the cuffs on. Well, that's, I don't know. So.
I agree with you. And even the fact that not only their definition of arrest, but the whole conversation around the adolescent domestic batterers not being familiar with the Illinois case law and the restrictions that puts on us locally, it was very interesting. yeah, it feels like there hasn't been enough robust discussion for them to make a truly informed opinion or decision about things. And I was really thankful. I was really glad to have so many people on that call all at once so that all you guys could contribute, especially like, because I'm not a lawyer, and to hear people bring up that case law, it was really, really good, because I don't think anyone's ever given them that information before.
Well,
Yeah,
if you have it, sorry, Julia, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, this is the first time that we've all gotten to do it together. So I think that was kind of my impression too, Lisa, that it was helpful to hear so that everybody could hear at the same time and relate to each other and support the direction of the conversation. And Mike, I think to your points, I just would share that, as we continue to talk about this, that's something that comes up in the data work group for the statewide RED committee. There's different definitions for both that arrest level and the diversion level that affect the data that we get. There's different impressions about what it is that we're trying to collect with those data points. So I appreciate those thoughts, and I can certainly continue to share that with the data committee.
And actually, Julie, can I ask you a question? I meant to ask it when you talked about it earlier in the agenda. What are the data points that the statewide council is looking at? Are they looking at arrest? Are they looking at detention? Like, where exactly are they focusing?
It's the 5 OJJDP ones. So arrest, diversion, detention, IDJJ commitments, and transfers to adult.
If I could add too, I agree with Mike as far as the data is way more complex than that. And certainly the youth home has that data because those are the kids coming in. But I agree with Mike, how many kids got station adjustment, how many kids got tickets, and arrest is more complex. And I will say too that not every kid arrested in Kane County lives in Kane County. So there is issues there too. So I know the 2018 data that we had for the for the detention only went on the data of kids that lived in Kane County. So X amount of kids live in Kane County and X kids, it's not that easy. So I'm fascinated by the data. I'm sure you guys are too, but I just want us to keep an open mind. It's complex, and I don't know, do we have to have, where the kids were from? You know what I mean? Do we have to add extra data points so we can't just say, oh, Kane County has X many, kids that live in town, but this many got arrested. Well, I can't stop who comes into St. Charles or Kane County, where they come from. So again, I agree with Mike as far as the data it can be more complex than that. And I would like a whole picture too. I think it's there's more out there that I think we can look at.
Agreed.
Okay. Well, if anybody has any other feedback for Julia on that, you can get it to her. Next is the wake up call. It has been set for March 3rd at 6:30 at Herget Middle School. The promotion of the event has begun, and so far there are 15 parents registered. And Julia is going to be sending out materials by the end of the week to the JJC. You're sending out to the full council, Julia? Yeah, to promote it within the council. And Dr. McCall also received a request from The Voice to promote the event. So hopefully there will be a good turnout for that one. And then Julia, do you want to take the last one?
Yeah, so the last one is just for the 2023 grant planning, which feels weird to even just say, but it's going to be coming. I have a feeling the NOFOs will be out. Usually it comes around March. But I wanted to just put this out there to the board to be thoughtful about what we incorporate into our grant, because it seems like we've gotten feedback at times. I know we've talked about, how we utilize the data to inform our plans. And so, the plans are based on that data from 2018 that we saw. So that's now 4 years ago, right? So I wanted to just be sensitive that there are probably needs that are coming up, during the times now that we're not necessarily seeing reflected in the data quite yet, that we're looking at. So I didn't know if there are needs that we're seeing that we want to really take a look at as a council, and we can get that data to prove that it's happening. I'd like to incorporate that into our juvenile justice council plan so we can address it.
Any comments on that right now? Okay, let everyone think about that. You have any ideas, send off to Julia. And then we're moving on to our one item of new business. And this is the CPRD data presentation. Julia was wanting to know if we wanted to coordinate a presentation again this year.
I like that presentation because it's usually interactive where we can give feedback, because it's usually like a staffer or social worker, somebody compiling that info and presenting it. And it's good, like the issues that Eric and Mike brought up, then we could communicate them directly to the person who's compiling the data and, you know, start that education process for them. I like it.
Anybody else? All right, so we can work on that, Julia?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Any other updates from anyone? Okay, so our next meeting is March 10th. It will be virtual again. And then if we could just have a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourn.
And a second.
Second.
All right, then it is 12:49 and we are adjourned. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.